What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are out in the yard because I just sprayed off my dead plates build. If you are new to the channel, this is my 1978 Cherokee Chief that I'm building for the BleepinJeep Beast Wars this October. If you don't know anything about the Beast Wars, it is a competition that BleepinJeep is putting on in Eastern Tennessee, where we have $5,000 to come up with basically a budget rock crawler. And this is what I'm bringing to the competition. It has a 360 V8 motor in it. It has the factory Dana 44 in the front and then the factory Dana 44 in the rear. I have a set of 38-inch TSL Super Swampers and on some Mickey Thompson wheels. Everything I've got is used, obviously, and if you haven't watched my previous videos, I highly recommend them because you get to see how I dove-nosed the front. I dove-nosed the front probably over a foot overall, just bringing everything in. You can tell how much I dove-nosed it by if you run an imaginary line right about here. I have had some comments asking me, why did you decide to build a Cherokee Chief? Well, I ended up with this Cherokee Chief. I got it for $500 and the motor ran. I covered up a lot of the rust holes in the floor with license plates just because I had a ton of license plates. So the Jeep is not done. I have several things that I have to do, and in this episode today we're going to start on those things. So my main concerns is suspension. I want to keep this leaf sprung. I want to keep it simple. So I could, 3-link the front, 4-link the rear, but I don't want to do that if I have to get up there and sell it. And I know with a good, decent leaf spring from a good manufacturer, I think I can hang with somebody that will be bringing something that's linked and has has coils and everything like that. I have to re-gear it. So I'm going to be putting 513s in those Dana 44s, and I'm going to be putting lunchbox lockers. Another thing that I have to do is these brakes. They are terrible. I can barely stop. Like whenever I pulled up in this intro, I was slamming on the brakes because I don't want to get up there and start going down a decline and then I can't stop. I'm going to be putting new leaf springs underneath it and new shocks underneath. And then my power steering is leaking very, very badly. So I want to try to figure out what's going on with that because I don't want to be leaking all over the trail or starting a fire.
With Hammond's car on fire.
All of that is done. I have to actually test this thing. So I don't want to just put this all together and then just take it to East Tennessee and pray to the good Lord that it actually holds together. If anybody buys this from me after this competition, they are crazy because I plan on sending this thing to the moon going up those rocks. But anyway, we're gonna get this thing pulled into the shop. So just for those people that are doubting my Jeep building abilities, this is my personal Cherokee that I built a couple of years ago. This is what I call beef cheeks. It's a 79 that, it's just a 79 Cherokee S that I LS swapped, 1 tons, blah, blah, blah. I kind of did a resto mod on that, but I actually did fix the rust like I should on that one. I do have the abilities to fix the rust. I'm just choosing not to exercise my abilities on this because 1, I don't want to, 2, I'm lazy, and then 3, I don't want somebody to buy a Jeep that doesn't have any rust on it. This thing takes up a lot of real estate in the shop here. All right, so I have all of the parts that I have sitting right here on my little table. And let me show you what I got. So I'm going to be redoing the suspension. So I went with the grandfather of all suspension systems. I went with SkyJacker. And I got 4 leaf springs that I'm going to be replacing. And I'm really hoping that, so this is a spring over setup. So you can see right here that the leaf springs are now on top of the axle. Here, I'll show you on this one right here. So from the factory, the leaf springs come underneath these Dana 44s. But a common modification on these is to do a spring over. So you can see you got the spring over on beef cheeks here, and then this one already had the spring over already installed from the previous owner, so I'm just gonna roll with it. Another thing, I'm gonna be taking off these old nasty, rusty looking rough country shocks and replacing those with some SkyJacker, the performance monotubes. These are awesome and they're very affordable. So if you have one of these full-size Jeeps and you would like to redo your suspension, I would definitely check out SkyJacker.com. They make a ton of parts for a ton of different makes and models, not just these full-size Jeeps. SkyJacker has been around probably longer than I've been alive, and they are definitely tried and true. And if you would like to save a little bit of money with your SkyJacker order, make sure that you use my discount code 6feet10 to save yourself 10% off your order. So I know I've said this in the past couple of videos, but this is gonna be like a 2000s era Teleco build. And SkyJacker and keeping it on leaf springs definitely fits the Teleco vibe, along with the diamond plate tailgate. Definitely Teleco. And the bird poop. The next thing that I'll talk about is the gear selection. So I went with the Nitro gear and axle. I went with the 513s. So I'm not planning on doing anything with my transfer case, and just to keep this thing as happy on the trail as possible, I went with a 513, and you can see here how thick that bad boy is. So that's definitely going to be a huge improvement off-road. And then while I'm doing the gears, I'm also going to be throwing in these Spartan lockers. So these Spartan lockers are awesome, and they're tried and true, and they're very, very simple, and they're very, very effective. I'm not a big fan of welding up differentials. I know this is like a budget build. When you're taking a big rig like this on off-road trails with a welded front differential and a welded rear, I would never be able to turn on trails like I need to. So where we're going is gonna be pretty tight, it's gonna be really muddy, it's gonna be really rocky. So I want to be able to maneuver this thing along the trails, and with those lockers right there, I know I'll be able to. So I just went around and sprayed everything, all the nuts and bolts that I'm gonna be turning here in a couple of minutes. I went ahead and sprayed everything with PB Blaster. That's why my shop looks like absolute crap. But I went ahead and sprayed all the U-bolts and everything because I plan on reusing those U-bolts.
What? You can't do that!
Which is highly not recommended to reuse U-bolts. So anytime that you do anything with U-bolts, as soon as you torque them down, they can no longer ever be used again. But because this is a budget build and I didn't want to buy any more, I plan on reusing these U-bolts if I don't tear them up during the removal process, because this thing really isn't gonna see any highway driving or anything like that. But SkyJacker does have them. I'm just gonna roll the dice and see if I can remove them without tearing them up and cutting them off with a plasma cutter. So I did get some dead plates shirts made. You can see right there. As you can see right there, I just picked these up this week. And then we got this on the back. Check that out. So I'll be selling these locally for $25. So if you're in and around Eastern North Carolina and you'd like a dead plate shirt, hit me up in the comments. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick dead plates up in the air and remove all the tires and wheels. All right, so I have the axle kind of resting on these jack stands right here, and check this out. This thing is leaking power steering fluid like crazy, and I'll show you where it's leaking from. Well, I don't know exactly where it's leaking from, but it's leaking. I don't know if you can see that drip right there. It's kind of shining. Yeah, so I don't know if it's leaking from the reservoir or from the actual pump itself. I mean, it looked like they're incorporated. Crap. So that's something I'm gonna have to look into, because it is leaking like mad. It's only been parked in here like an hour, and that's how much it's leaked, which is not good. That is not good at all. So another thing that is not good is I am a huge idiot, and I forgot to order the bushing kit.
What a loser.
Whoopsie daisy. So these come with the bushings already pressed in, ready to go. These are the rear. The fronts which is what I was planning on working on, I have to get the bushing kit from SkyJacker. I have never claimed to be a smart person, but make sure if you order these leaf springs, make sure that you get the bushing kits also. So yeah, and I think it states on the website that the bushing kits are required, so I didn't really read that too good. There you go. So I'm going against my gut, and I think I'm just going to continue working on this front suspension. What I may end up doing is just taking these leaf springs out and just running the bolt through. I know you should never do this, but I think I'm just going to, just for the sake of, I'm kind of on a time crunch to get this video out. I can't just have this Jeep sitting here 2 or 3 days, and I really want to go ahead and get this ride height where I want it. Just a disclaimer, don't do anything that I'm about to do, or ever. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to crack open all of these bolts. I did spray everything with PB Blaster, and just hoping that I can reuse these U-bolts and the bolts on here. I don't want to cut anything. Like I said, this is a budget build. This is budget build stuff. If this was something that my kids were going to ride in, I would replace every single thing. I put grade 8 bolts up here. I put all grade 8 hardware, and then I definitely put new U-bolts. But my youngins really aren't going to be riding this except for around the yard and stuff like that. And that's really kind of where I'm at. So just take everything I'm doing with a huge grain of salt. You can probably look at this Jeep and how I built it, and maybe you're probably already thinking that in your head. But anyway, I'm gonna try to go ahead and break open all of these nuts and bolts. All right, so I'm gonna start off with these U-bolts right here. Here we go. Got the shock plate off, and then I have the U-bolt plate, the axle U-bolt plate. All that came off, the U-bolts came off just fine. So hopefully I'll have the same success with the other side. So now I'm gonna try to get this bolt broke free. Well, it didn't break, so that's good. So I've got the nut off of the front. Now I'm going to jump to the rear hanger. All right, so I went and did the exact same thing to the passenger side and then picked the Jeep up, and I saved those U-bolts also, so I'll be able to reuse those. So now I need to get these leaf springs out. And the rear, I think I can just pull on it. So I got the rear ones out. There's front ones on both sides. They seem to be really, really in there. So I have tried to tap this out, and I don't know if you can see right in there, the inner sleeve that the bolt slides into is seized to the actual bolt itself. So it looks like I'm going to have to cut right here and then cut right there and cut this bolt on both sides. That way it falls right out. I didn't want to do that, but it's all in the name of science, I guess, and that one's the same exact way. But if this is the only bolt that I have to cut, then I'm doing pretty good so far. But now that I have the leaf springs completely out of the way, I can test fit this new spring from SkyJacker. And these are directional. So if you measure from the center pin to the center of this hole right there, this side is going to be shorter. So the long side goes in the front, the short side goes in the rear, just so that you know. And once again, I'll say I'm going to be putting the bolts in for right now just for mock-up. So I'm going to get the leaf spring mounted with the U-bolts, and I may just send a bolt through with no bushing in yet. So then when the bushings come in 2 or 3 days, take the bolts back out and then press in the bushings and then put the bolts right back in. So I do not recommend doing this at all, but like I said, this is just one of those things that it's just for testing purposes only. So if you look right here, you can actually see the pin that actually holds the leaf springs together, and it's the centering pin, and it goes in this hole right here. Well, typically that is on the bottom. Since I have the spring over mount right there, I actually have to take this bolt out and flip it before I can install it into that hole. And just a helpful tip, if you clamp down the leaf springs, they're less likely to scatter whenever you take this out. Hopefully that one will be enough. I couldn't find my metal C-clamp, so like I said, hopefully it'll stay put. Get in the hole. So I found a bolt that I believe came out of beef cheeks, and I'm just going to, like I said, this is just mock-up only. Just for right now. And now I need to actually bring the caster back on that axle, that way that perch is lined up with the leaf spring. So now that I have the leaf spring seated on the perch, I'm going to go ahead and pop these U-bolts on. I don't have it lined up in the rear. I'm going to have to apply a little bit of weight, but I can already kind of foresee that it's going to be a little too tall for what I want, but I still, before I start taking leaves out of this, I just want to, verify that. So putting my shock plate on. Like that. Hopefully they'll reach. I didn't torque those down super tight. I just wanted to make sure that the leaf spring stayed seated on the axle perch. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the passenger side, and then I'm going to start applying weight. That way this will be a little bit closer to lining up, because I don't know if you can tell, these springs have a pretty good arch in them. So I have all of the hardware in. I do not have the bushings in, but everything else is in. I don't have anything torqued down or anything like that, but what I want to do is I want to lower the Jeep down with it still on jack stands, just to see what these leaf springs are going to do. I know they may do something weird, just because they have a little bit of extra play inside of these holes right here, but it'll still give me an idea of what to expect with those bushings in there. So this is it sitting on its own weight. The lift arm is just sitting underneath it, and it is definitely too tall. So if this was a spring under application, it would probably work just fine, but because mine is sitting on top, I'm probably gonna have to remove some of these leaf springs. This isn't like a SkyJacker issue, this is like me issue. And one thing that I noticed right off the get-go is if you look right here, this is straight up and down. You definitely don't want that. You want this to be about a 45-degree angle. That way it'll flex and move. So right now, whenever I hit a bump, it's just going to try to push up on this, which is going to transfer it into the vehicle and make it ride super rough. Now, if this was swung out, whenever I hit a bump, it would try to swing a little bit, which would soften the ride. By looking at the rest of the Jeep, you might say, really dude, you're really worried about how it rides? Well, I'm gonna be doing a lot of riding for like 3 days. So I definitely want this correct. And so I think I'm gonna start taking a few of these leaf packs out. Sweet, so that worked out exactly how I wanted it to. So you can see I took out those leaves right there. This leaf spring is probably gonna be picked up just a little bit just because those bushings aren't in it. But you can see right here, my angle is a lot better. And that's what I want to see right there. So now I think I'm going to throw those tires on it and see what it's like. It's picked up about 2 inches right now with these jack stands, and I want to see what it looks like with the tires on it. So honestly, it looks like it only came down about 1 inch, which I'm good with it. I'm not a greedy person. I should have showed you before, but you know, whenever you did that, it didn't move at all. Like it was solid. Those leaf springs were like seized and wouldn't move at all. So other than not having bushings, I'm good with it. And so now all I have to do is whenever the bushings come in, is just take those bolts, pick up on it, take those bolts out, pick up a little bit more, press in the bushings, bring the Jeep back down, and put the bolts back in. And something else you can see right here, look at that angle. So that's a good angle. Man, that's awesome. New parts on old crappy vehicles. I love it. So I think I'm gonna wait until those bushings come in to put the shocks on, just because I want to be able to, I don't want to have to take the shocks back off and all that mess. So I think now I'm going to turn my attention to the rear. And we're going to come back to this. We're going to come back to getting the bushings in and everything. So in the rear back here, I'm going to do something that I forgot to do with the front, is I'm going to measure. So anytime that I'm doing any suspension modifications, raising, lowering, whatever, I like to just get a measurement. Let's see, right at 37 inches. This is the only help I could get tonight. Little pickle. Don't mess up my camera. Quit. So I think the rear is going to be putting up more of a fight than the front did, just because things are kind of a little bit more rusty back here. So I don't know, we'll just kind of play it by ear. But first thing, I'm going to get these tires off. So I have the jack supported just like I did in the front. I've got just a wee bit of weight on the leaf springs, and now I'm going to see if they actually come off. I'm going to put some more PB Blaster on that and see if I can cool it off a little bit, because I got hot. So I put some PB Blaster on it, or Blaster. I guess this is like an off-brand PB Blaster. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the passenger side. So I successfully got all of the U-bolts undone, and they're just really hot right now, so I'm kind of waiting for those to cool off. But now I'm going to take off those old nasty, those old rusty shocks. Now I'm going to take these bolts out of the shackle. I don't think this one is seized up, so that's good. I'm worried about that front one. If that front one is seized up, I'm gonna be in a mess. So if you look in here, if this is seized up, then I'm gonna be in a mess because I'm gonna have a really hard time getting something in there to cut it because of this body bushing mount right there. So hopefully this will come out. So I have all the leaf springs out from underneath it, and holy crap, those are probably the heaviest leaf springs I think I've ever had to deal with. So the leaf springs that go in the rear, I don't think I'm going to take any leaves out yet because I just want to see where it lands. And I don't have to flip these because the pin is actually facing the correct way that I need. And just like the front, these are directional. So the short end right here, you see this is the long end. See how far that goes down? The short end goes towards the front of the vehicle. So yeah, now I got to pick these heavy jokers up and get them in there. These are actually lighter. I got the U-bolts all mounted. I did have to cut them because there originally was blocks and I wanted not to use those just for axle wrap reasons, and I just think they look tacky. But so I did have to cut some of those off, but I did leave a little bit just in case I have to add anything to this. I don't want to cut too much away from the U-bolts. So now I need to get this lined up, and this is kind of being a pain in the butt. So I think what I'm going to do is once I get everything where I want it, I'm going to come back and actually take these bolts out and put a good amount of anti-seize in there, because I'm sure I'm going to have to be readjusting things later on down the road, and I don't want to ever have to deal with a seized bolt like I did in the front. So like I said, right now this is just like mock-up. Alright, so now I'm going to do the same thing to the passenger side. I attempted to put it down on the jack stands on its own weight, and I realized very quickly that I have a huge issue. So you can see right here, look at this shackle. Now this is not correct. This shackle should be back this way. So I've experienced this in the past, but not this bad. And all I did, to be honest with you, was I took another vehicle and I just slowly winched this back, and it worked out. But this one is rather bad. So if I left it like this, I would feel pretty much every bump right there. And it was like this to begin with. This isn't like a SkyJacker issue. This is like this Jeep issue. Obviously this Jeep isn't like the best thing to build, but it's still an issue, and there are some options. One option is I could cut this whole box out and move it forward. Another option is to get like a universal leaf spring mount and move it. Another option would be to get a longer leaf spring. I'm not doing that, but I've got to somehow figure out how to make this work. I need this bolt like all the way right here. So I think for the time being, I'm just gonna put the tires on it and see what it looks like, and see if we're even close to my desired. What the heck is that? Is that a sticker? It's a duck sticker. I found it in this rust. Oh, there's a hole. Oh, there's a hole in my floor right here. Huh. Yeah. So, like I was saying, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put the tires on and just see if we're even in the ballpark of what I want this ride height to be. It's kind of a lot of work by yourself super late at night, so I'm just going to throw tires on it and see where we're at. I'm kind of over it right now. So the ride height is pretty much exactly where I want it, but I'm just not happy with that rear shackle situation. So it did get better, but you can still see it's at an angle. I would rather it be pointing out, but I'll show you this side. So it's not riding on it anymore. Huh. And something else that this Jeep had an issue with before I even, like, as soon as I got it, I kind of noticed was this, the tire is a little bit forward in the wheel well. I don't really like that. Man. I think I'm going to call it a night. New King of the Hill episodes come on tonight right at midnight, so I'm going to see what all that's about. I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to get inside and watch some King of the Hill.